Hello students and welcome to the first lesson of our civics part in our textbook, which is titled Our Constitution. This, I'm sure we have heard of the word constitution before, and today we are going to go in depth as to what the constitution is, the meaning of constitution, and who framed it, and all the other aspects of the constitution. Okay, so when we are talking about constitution, the very first thing that is very important is the preamble, which basically means the introduction to the constitution or the heart of the constitution. Whatever is said in the rest of the constitution is given reference to in the preamble. Then the two important people who were responsible for our constitution was Dr. Rajendra Prasad, as he was the President of the Constituent Assembly, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was the chairman of the drafting committee, which in the end was the committee that formed the constitution. Before we go into depth of all this, let us go into what is the meaning of constitution. Okay, basically the meaning of constitution is a set of rules that is followed by a country. What does that mean? It also enumerates the organs of the government, its powers and function. Enumerates means tells us more about. So tells us not only what are the organs of the government, which are the three organs, but also what they have to do and how they have to function. Then it also tells us citizens about our rights and duties. And the third thing, the constitution gives reference to the government. So it is like a handbook for the government. If they have any doubts, if they need any corrections to be done, they know where to look and where to get reference to that. And that is why no one can violate the constitution. Violate means to go against something. Now let us see the importance of the constitution. The first importance is it protects the rights of the citizens as all are equal before the law. Okay, so in front of the law, in front of the constitution, no one is rich or poor, and it doesn't matter if you are, a Brahmin or a Vaishya or a Kshatriya or a Shudra. It does not matter. Every person is considered equal before the law. Okay, and that is very essential because it helps anyone who is getting treated badly to get justice from the constitution. Then it also functions as a reference guide to the duties to be performed by the government. So whatever the government has to all the duties the government has to perform, the constitution is already laid out for the government, so that if new management or if a new person is coming into the government, they don't have to start from scratch. They can always see what is mentioned in the constitution and follow that only. Then it coordinates the functions of the democratic institutions such as legislature, executive and judiciary. That means these three organs of the government, that is legislature, which forms the laws, then executive, which comes up with the laws, executive, which implements the laws, and third one, judiciary, which makes sure that the people follow the laws. Okay, so if there is anyone who is not following the law, the judiciary brings them to justice. So these three organs are brought together by the constitution. And lastly, it also organizes better relations between the government and the individual. Okay, so that means not only between two people. For example, if I am fighting with my neighbor about some property dispute or something, but also if I feel like the government is not providing for me something, or if someone is engaging in corruption against the government, even that is comes under the constitution. Okay, then let us go to the process of how the constitution came into being. How did it come into existence? First thing was, before the drafting committee was formed, there was another committee called the Constituent Assembly, and the Constituent Assembly had its president, that was Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and he elected a few members to form the drafting committee. In order to hasten the process of preparing the constitution, the assembly created various committees. Drafting committee was headed by, or the chairman of the drafting committee was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Then they also tell us that there were 299 members of the Constituent Assembly. The first session was held on 9th December 1946. Now, if you look at the dates here, you will realize that we got independence in 1947. So this was a year before that. Now, I don't want to get too much in detail because again we will do this in a later chapter. But basically, by 1945, the British had already started the process of handing over the government back to us Indians. Okay, so in this case, that is why the Constituent Assembly started its meetings and all before we got independence itself. Okay. Then, and this is a picture of the drafting committee, or at least a few members of the drafting committee. The constitution was adopted on January 26, 1950. The constitution declared India as a republic. In order to mark the adoption of the constitution, every year January 26 is marked as Republic Day, and it is a national festival. On November 26th every year, the Constitutional Day is celebrated as it was on November 26, 1949. The Constitution was approved by the Constituent Assembly. According to the directives of the Constitution, the first general elections of India were held between 1951 and 52. The Parliament with bicameral legislature, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, came into force in 1952. Okay, so basically what happened was, there was this Constituent Assembly. They created another committee called the Drafting Committee. This drafting committee, with B.R. Ambedkar as chairman, started to frame a sort of a set of rules for the country to be born, okay, for India. And they brought that and placed it in front of the Constituent Assembly. Then the Constituent Assembly revised it. They read through it and they removed certain things and said you should add certain things. Okay, and then the drafting committee again went through it and saw how they could add the points or take out the points that were mentioned by the Constituent Assembly. This happened almost 2 to 3 times. So our constitution took almost 3 years to get, from the time they started planning the constitution till the time they finished it. Okay, so, and that is what is mentioned in this blue box. The members of the Constituent Assembly verified the draft constitution and proposed 2,473 amendments. That means 2,473 changes the Constituent Assembly told the drafting committee to make in the constitution. The proposed amendments and the draft constitution were discussed in detail in the meeting of the Constituent Assembly. Hence, it took 3 years for the constitution to have a final shape. Okay, and that is why it took so long. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the Law Minister of India from 15th August 1947 to 26 January 1950. Okay, so after all this back and forth, finally on November 26, 1949, the constitution was actually approved and they said it is complete and done, and there are no changes to be done. And the following year, 1950, 26th January, the constitution came into existence. And that is why the year after that, that is 1951-52, elections were conducted, and after that the two houses of the parliament were formed, and from then on we have had the same system of government. Okay, so you see how it is very, very systematic the way the constitution has come into force. Then now let us go through the actual looking at the constitution. Now, as I told you, the preamble of the constitution is also called as the heart of the constitution, because what is mentioned in the preamble of the constitution is a sort of a theme that runs through the entire constitution. Let us read through. The Constitution of India begins with the preamble. The preamble is considered as the heart of the constitution, as it represents the dreams and ideals of the people. Justice, freedom, equality, self-respect, fraternity, and national integrity are the ideals that find reference in the preamble. Okay, so if I'm sure you all are familiar with the preamble, because when you all had school, we used to every day say the preamble. Okay, so if you can read along with me, it would be nice. The preamble of the Constitution. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. Okay, I'm sure I don't need to explain each one of these points, but I will just explain the the highlighted points. Basically, sovereign means a nation that is not ruled by one particular person. Okay, and that is how we are. We are not ruled by one person. It is a group of people or a parliament of people. Then you have socialist. Socialist means a government that is not ruled by only the rich people or only a first class citizen. It is ruled by anyone. You don't have to be a Brahmin or a Vaishya or a Kshatriya to become a member of parliament. You can be any person and you will become a member of parliament, and that is what socialist means. Secular means it does not depend on one particular religion. Okay, for example, if you see countries like maybe England or Britain or the USA, or maybe a few Middle Eastern countries, they are all ruled by a particular religion, maybe Christianity or Islam or some other one. But India is not like that. It is a country that does not put religion as one particular religion as its national religion. Then democratic republic, that means it is a nation that is ruled by the republic, means by the people. Okay, and it has certain set of rules that is enforced by the judiciary. Then you have justice. That means the whole constitution is based on the principle of justice to not just one person but to everyone. Then liberty, that means a freedom, to give people freedom of thought. That means what they think, of how they speak, of which faith they want to follow. They have freedom for all of that. Then equality, again to treat everyone the same. And fraternity means brotherhood. Okay, and basically I'm explaining this a little in detail because these ideas are seen in every part of the constitution. So this is the preamble of the constitution. Then we go to the salient features of the constitution. Salient features basically means the important features of the constitution. The very first one is our constitution is a written constitution. Okay, there are a few nations like the United Kingdom that does not have a written constitution. This is just an oral constitution, but they have certain rules as to not just anyone can come up with rules. You have to be maybe the king or the queen of England, only then you can form the rules, but still nothing is written down, whereas our constitution is very systematically written with a lot of points, a lot of schedules, articles, all of that. Apart from that, ours is the lengthiest constitution in the world. That means ours is the longest constitution, and many may say that this is maybe a drawback, but it is this lengthy only because there has been a lot of planning that has gone into creation of our constitution. Okay, then the second one is republic. The constitution has declared India as a republic. In case of republican system, there is no rule of king. Instead, there is a rule of elected representatives by the people. India, which has this kind of political system, is known as democratic republic. So as I told you, we have the republic of our constitution is a republic, and that means that a group of people rule the nation rather than just one person. And why it is bad that only one person should not rule? Because then whatever that one person says is right. Okay, and sometimes power can corrupt. Okay, and that is why India has decided that we don't want one person to rule, we want a group of people, so that there is many voices that come out, so that there is a proper discussion before anything takes place. Next is fundamental rights and duties. Then we also have fundamental rights and duties. Basically what that means is, as a citizen of India, you have a lot of rights. Right to freedom, right to education, right to constitutional remedy, and we have 6 fundamental rights, and those 6 fundamental rights basically includes everything that a person needs to live. Okay, from education, right to life, everything is included in that. But apart from that, we also have duties which we many times forget about. And what are those duties? To respect the constitution, the national flag, the national emblem, and all the other national symbols. We have like that 11 fundamental rights, fundamental duties, and if we want our rights to be fulfilled by the government, we need to do something for the government, and that is our duties. Now, as I told you, there is another lesson in your textbook dedicated to fundamental rights and duties, so I'm not going to go into each one right now. So there are a few fundamental rights and duties. Then we have secularism. Secularism basically means there is no discrimination on the basis of religion, and all are expected to treat all religions equally. The government considers no religion as its religion. So as I told you, even though majority of the people in India are maybe Hindus, it is not the national religion. Okay, every citizen is at freedom to practice religion of his choice and his faith. The government has the authority to control freedom to practice one's religion in the interest of public interest. Okay, so even though it is true that there is no one particular religion that is the national religion of India, at times when there are problems, when they know that there can be fights between different religious groups, the government can stop you from, you know, I won't say celebrating your religion, but from celebrating it in such a way that you put down other religions. Okay, it is always in the mind of making sure that all get equality properly, and that is the only time the government can stop or, you know, not allow you to do something about your religion. But otherwise, if you are peacefully doing following your religion, no one can question you, no one is allowed to say anything. Okay, so as you can see in that picture, all are living together, and this is a very important part of Indian Constitution, because this shows, if you look at Indian history, you will see many of the kings had this idea of, you know, religious tolerance, and this part of the constitution refers to all those kings that were ruling in India before. Then we have independent judiciary. Now the judicial system, as I told you, is the court system, or the system that makes sure that the rules and regulations of the country are followed. Now, if the judicial system is under a particular person or under a particular or other organ of the constitution, it cannot function properly, and that is why it is independent. That means what? Even if the president, the prime minister, whoever it is, whatever, if they commit a crime, the judiciary can take action against them. Now you will ask me, what if a judge or the judiciary itself commits a crime? It is possible. In that case, there is a protocol for other, to bring them also to justice. But at the same time, we need to realize that we have to keep our confidence in our government and make sure that the people in power know what they are doing. Then we have adult franchise, a universal adult franchise. Now this basically means that any person above the age of 18 has the right to vote. Okay, then a good government comes to power. The constitution wishes to establish a welfare state. Basically what happens is, only if every person above the age of 18 in our country is responsible enough to say that yes, I want to be involved in this the election of the person who is going to rule over me, only then can we have a good government. Okay, and that is what I mean. One of those is also comes under the fundamental duties, this responsibility that we have. So every person above the age of 18 needs to vote, and they need to exercise this right not because of anything else, but because their voice is as important as anyone else's. And democracy basically functions on the idea that every person is going to take his or her responsibility very, very seriously. If all say that, oh, who is going to listen to one vote, I am just one person, I am not going to make a difference, then there can be a problem in the voting system. And this is one thing that, even though it is very good, still a lot of people in India are not following it. Okay, so that is why it is important for you to know your rights, so that when you get to that age, you also need to use this right of yours and vote. And then we have election system. So the election system is very simple. India is the largest democracy in the world for the past 6 decades. Then this system of democracy has been adequately deep rooted in our country. Okay, that means this election system we have been following for the past 6 decades, that means 60 years or plus now. Okay, more than 60 years, and that is why it is very, very deep rooted in our country. Okay, now, and that is how we are going to get to a welfare state. That means the welfare state is a state that is good for everyone. Okay, it looks after the needs of every citizen. So if you want the government to look after your needs, you need to voice out your needs firstly, and secondly, you need to be responsible and do what is asked of you. Now, the last part of this is the last sentence that they've given is, it is still a satisfactory system in spite of certain demerits. That means our constitution does have a lot of problems, has a lot of demerits, but looking after a nation that is this big, this diverse, this, there is so much of differences, so much of variety in India. It is very difficult to look after a place like this with any other form of government. And that is why, as I said, we as each individual need to look after our responsibilities, our duties. If each of us take our duty seriously, then this government works. If we are very relaxed and we don't take responsibility, that is when our government fails. Okay, and that is why this lesson is added in your in your textbook, so that you get that sense of belonging to the nation and do what is asked of you. Now, I hope you've understood everything about this lesson. If you have any other doubts, please let me know.